starting right away, and let me come to the point. Quickly, we would love to know about your journey because reading your poetries in the last couple of days gave me a flavor. आपने पूरा इंडिया ऑलमोस्ट घूमा है. You have interacted with lot many people, lot many poets, local poets, and we would really love to know what was your experience and how did you start into this.
Firstly, thanks to Anup for being a part of the conversation. Thanks to the Karnavati University for having both of us here. And thanks to my friend Preeti. And thanks to all of you for being here on a warm afternoon and some commissioned to be here. That better yeah, some here by the love of poetry. So all are welcome equally.
पोएट्री है तो शायद पब्लिक उस हिसाब से थोड़ी सी कम है,
हाँ
बट
हाँ
let's try
but
and
poets को आदत है खाली chairs को पढ़ने की. That's the best audience, you know. They listen to most patiently the other chairs who listen to it, you know, and they don't even react. And they don't, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, and so he started with such a deep question, and I was thinking that I would smartly answer all your questions with some poems, but well, as you start from there, so. I'm a Tanjore Maharashtrian, born and brought up in Calcutta, so and you know traveled across with my work in social development. Married to a beautiful Arunachali girl from a Galo tribe, living in Assam. So you understand that it's a concoction of all of India. So to put that maybe into poetry and maybe it's an ode to love, and let's begin there, the safest place to begin, and the scariest place to begin as well. And எனக்கு எல்லா பாஷை தெரியாது ஆனா அன்பு புரியும் मुझे सारी भाषाएं तो नहीं आती पर प्यार समझ आता है আমি সব ভাষা জানি না কিন্তু ভালোবাসা বুঝি मला सगळं भाषा माहीत नाहीये पण प्रेम माहीत आहे मला মই সব ভাষা না জানো কিন্তু প্রেমর ভাষা জানো Love and poetry can be found anywhere. It can be found in Kabir's dohas, Namdev and Tukaram's abhangs, Thiruvalluvar's Tirukurals, or the Baul Geet of Bengal, or in the Bhatiyali songs of Assam. Love sticks out like the tongue of a Kali, suckles like a baby on its mother's breast, trickles like raindrops from tendrils, rolls down like beads of sweat while love making, drives at 200 miles per hour without a seatbelt, and faints at nothing. Love and poetry faint at nothing. Love and poetry are fearless.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
So that's your national integration.
My English is not that good, so I will try to talk in Hindi as much as possible.
बिल्कुल please
Yeah.
कीजिए.
So, with this beautiful thought that you expressed about love, मैं सच में ये बात जानने की कोशिश कर रहा था, या rather I am very curious about knowing why you chose only poetry and certain segments you have picked up in your poetry, whether it's your nostalgic feeling about your neighbors, about the environment, about the well-being of humanity. Why you do choose such subject, not that kind of we say प्यार मोहब्बत की बातें जो होती हैं. Why not that kind of? What is your definition of poetry?
Yeah, I mean, we were having sessions before our sessions, and that was fine. And I think one of the Gujarati artist Arvind was also there. We were having a lot of fun talking about it, and we were saying how, like you know, I mean, for any form, for anything to go ahead. I mean, I loved what Rima was saying about like you're not there just to ape what is being done in the past. You're there to build something new. A new legacy would be a big word, but at least to begin with, a new. I mean, the your own skin, your own aesthetics, the space where you come from. If you come from Kutch, is somewhere there is a mix of cultural and contemporary. Is that image there? are we looking back to look forward is the question. So I think yeah, and observing people is definitely something I love and I keep doing all the time. So yeah, to answer to that question, do I didn't pick out on the, there's a poem he's talking about the neighbors. So do you want to read it in Hindi? नहीं मतलब वो
I would
trans
request if you read the original version and then we can have the Hindi narration of that.
Okay, okay, okay. So because I didn't take it out, I'm so sorry. I didn't listen to my. But yeah, I mean, speaking of, we were also having a few.
So
Yeah. Why don't you
basically,
go first?
there are two poems I personally liked a lot. There is a poem he wrote as artist, about an artist. It is a very beautiful, very small poetry in a very simple words. But Madhu, I would really like to tell everybody how artist came up and what were the results when you wrote artist.
Okay, he's the poem here you're talking about, Anup, is as I was mentioning, is you create art and you don't know what is the reason for it, and at the same time you keep creating it. So I think it was 16th of June 2020 when there was an article saying that a Singapore paper, Straight Times or something, they came up with this article that artists are non-essential. Like they kind of did an interview, stupid kind of survey, and आर्टिस्ट को नॉन एसेंशियल बताया गया. तो मेरे बहुत सारे बॉलीवुड के दोस्त या फिर बहुत सारे आर्टिस्ट, फेलो आर्टिस्ट, मतलब ये कह रहे थे कि आर्टिस्ट इज एसेंशियल, आर्टिस्ट इज एसेंशियल. मतलब आर्ट्स के बिना क्या होगा, आप लोग घर पे बैठ के कोविड में सारा वीडियोस कंज्यूम कर रहे हो एंड आर्ट्स कंज्यूम कर रहे हो. मैंने बोला इतना क्यों हवा कर रहे हो, इट्स ओके इफ आई एम नॉन एसेंशियल, आई डोंट माइंड. आई मीन दैट्स नॉट like that's not my browbeating thing कि अरे मैं artist हूँ, ठीक है. I mean, so I think the poem emerged from somewhere, the thought that I don't think artist essential. पेड़ तो मुझे आके नहीं बोल रहा वो essential है, but I don't think उससे essential कुछ है. नदी को हम मार चुके हैं पर नदी आके नहीं हमें बोल रही कि वो essential है. So I mean, what is the level where we are going? And I think we artists or whoever is close to practicing an art form, they are very close to nature, relatively, I can safely say, relatively, than people who don't engage with art. Artists are very close to nature, very close to, knowingly or unknowingly, even if they are not engaging. So that's where the thought emerged from. And so we thought I'll read the poem in English and he'll go ahead and he did a translation
I
in
guess
Hindi.
अब artist की बात हो ही रही है तो I should request you to go for artist first. Let's
Yeah, okay,
decide.
sure. And we just chose to have a freewheeling conversation, not a very orchestrated
Yeah.
one. So as it so happens, and the poem is called Artist. I don't mind being the non-essential. Even a child takes its mother for granted. It does not run back to its mother until it is hurt. Nobody Nobody first thinks of water when they arrive at an exquisite dinner party until they are choking. I don't mind being the non essential, knowing you will come looking when things are broken and nothing else works. Art is non essential. Art is non essential until it is not. So that's the poem. Yeah.
So I took a liberty without asking Madhu कि मैं इस poetry को translate करूँगा in my own style. So I've tried to translate this poetry, Madhu, and I have added few words, few lines in your poetry. So I hope you like it. And it goes something like this कि मुझे नहीं खलता गैर ज़रूरी होना, मुझे नहीं खलता गैर ज़रूरी होना, माँ के मायने बच्चा कहाँ समझता है, जब चोट लगती है तो दौड़ कर माँ के पास ही आता है, महफिलों में खान पान की जब वो आता है, हलक में निवाला अटकने पर ही पानी पूछा जाता है, मुझे नहीं खलता गैर ज़रूरी होना, क्योंकि मैं जानता हूँ जब चीज़ें टूटती हैं, व्यवस्थाएं डगमगाती हैं, जब कुछ काम नहीं आता तब मुझे ढूंढा जाता है, कला गैर ज़रूरी है तब तक जब तक उसकी ज़रूरत नहीं होती. This was artist, And
Do you want to read Neighbors as well? So in
definitely
ca-
we can do that. Yeah. So
so
neighbors is a very nostalgic poetry. He has small collections of small poetries, and neighbors, when I read it, एक बहुत ही खूबसूरत चीज़ है जहाँ पड़ोसियों के साथ हमारे रिलेशनशिप क्या होते हैं, छोटी छोटी चीज़ों के लिए उनके पास चले जाना, वी डोंट इवन आस्क देम शुड आई कम इन योर हाउस और नॉट, वी जस्ट एंटर इन देयर हाउस एज इफ इट इज़ आवर ओन. तो उसके ऊपर ये छोटी छोटी पोएट्रीज हैं. आई थिंक मधु यू शुड गो विद इट.
sure, and to be very frank, I kind of miss that because we have started documenting everything, security cameras and whatnot. And to think about it, that it was just 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that people were happily trudging across each other's houses. And and I also, this poem is definitely, there's a separate ode to him, but this poem could also be a ode to him. Balkrishna Vittal Das Doshi, he just passed away, but I'm very inspired by other people's work. And the idea that the home itself is a choraha is another poem which is there, but I will go with this one first. It's called Neighbors. And Neighbors. I miss visiting my neighbors without a reason, or at best finding a reason to watch a weekly soap together, giving a jar of homemade pickle, sharing food because we tried out a new recipe, having a conversation about our well being because it's been a while, sharing our woes without any expectation for help, asking for help without hesitation. As a society, as a society, I don't know how to explain this as an irreparable loss.
ब्यूटीफुल, बहुत खूबसूरत था. एंड अगेन आई ट्रांसलेटेड दिस पोएट्री एज पड़ोसी. एक कमी सी महसूस होती है, बेवजह पड़ोसी के घर आना जाना याद आता है. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा ये कि वजह ढूंढ लेते थे, कभी टीवी पर रोज़ आने वाला सीरियल देखने के लिए, तो कभी घर में बने अचार की बरनी देने के लिए. मिल बांट कर खाना खाते थे कि कोई नई नई रेसिपी मिल जाए, खैरियत पूछ लेते थे और बिना खुदगर्जी से एक वादा कराते थे, एक अरसा हो गया है, कुछ काम हो तो बता देना, हम हैं. जब पड़ती थी ज़रूरत, हक से मदद मांग लेते थे. एक समाज के तौर पर मुझे समझ नहीं आता कि कैसे समझाऊं इस बात को, जिसकी भरपाई हो नहीं सकती, ये घाटा इतना बड़ा है. एक कमी महसूस होती है, बेवजह पड़ोसी के घर आना जाना याद आता है.
थैंक यू, आपने उसे ट्रांसलेट किया, बहुत ही
It,
खूबसूरत.
it was wonderful poetry. This was the first poetry when I was looking at your works I read, and immediately it struck me that I should translate it because it was very nostalgic for us. Because बचपन में हमें भी याद है कि कहीं ना कहीं किसी न किसी घर पे चले जाते थे, कुछ ना कुछ करते थे, and they used to lovingly welcome us.
And not only that, Anup, the fact that, I mean, the point I'm trying to put across is something like Rima here talked about, is like the little things of life, I mean, the joy. I mean, we are speaking of mental health so much, but why are we at this space? We are constantly boxing ourselves, like, and alienating ourselves from the process. I mean, you don't know where your meat comes from, you don't know where your food comes from, you don't know where your coriander comes from, you don't know where your chilies come from. I mean, that is scary. Constantly, you know, getting towards a westernized world where you don't know. I mean, that's why even at times, grocery shops, which are being mechanized constantly, at least right now in Guwahati, I'm sure mega cities already have it, or the two-tier cities. And you don't have a daily interaction. You can't keep a 5 rupees ki udhar kal de deta hu. And that is not happening. I mean, I mean, so that scares me, the kind of whole impersonal spaces we are building, and so that scares me.
We are creating an artificial cocoon around us, which is, I think, not necessary. That unconditional love for the people around us is somewhere missing right now. And jahan tak I still remember when you just said about where do things come from. My teacher used to say, if you are an artist, you need to be a good observer as well. He used to say, keep your eyes, mind, and eyes, mind, and ears open, so that you can listen, you can watch, you can understand. From that point of view, if I come to my next question, is that uh, why poetry is an art? Why do you call it an art of writing? Why do we call poet a painter of words?
I'm so scared of you, Anup, right now. Anup throws a googly. He like intertwines so many questions together. Like, what do I answer first?
No,
You know, and but yeah,
see,
no, no. I was just joking
the
about that.
more you
But
get nervous, it's harder for me to ask the questions because I am nervous. What should ask to you?
oh no, no,
So
no, no. I'm not
basically,
nervous. I'm saying I'm happy that you throw like. Then I keep on answering, and you guys have to
ये
will
ये
sieve
मेरी
out the
क्यूरि
answers yourself.
ये
Okay.
मेरी क्यूरियोसिटी है कि मैं
हाँ
इतने
हाँ
सवाल पूछूं.
नहीं नहीं वही मैं बोल रहा हूँ इतना सुंदर से आप इंटरट्वाइन करके गूगली डालते हो तो मैं दो तीन चीज़ें मिलाकर ही बोलने वाला हूँ तो एक तो व्हाट इज art and what is poetry that you asked. Let me get that first. I mean, interestingly, I'll have to probably do a workshop some other time about this. But when I say what is art, uh, that's a question, right? Can I have a yes or no? What is art? Is that a question?
Is that a question? 50-50.
That's a question, but that's the answer. The joy of that is that's the answer. When you're creating anything, a film, a poem, painting, is this art? Is the answer like, is this what I'm here to do? Is this, I mean, you'll have to mull over that question and every living moment. I mean, she was, I think the moderator here in the earlier section was talking about self doubts, and I think so I think that's where an artist is born, a constant self-doubt, a constant taking ahead of whatever art form you're practicing, and not just aping what was done in the past. And we will talk about collaborations in the past, but then the observations and simplicity is something he threw in words. So when you throw in words, I have to look for things. So let me go ahead with a poem and probably see collaborations in something that you can always do in your head. Like I'm happy Rima is here, and like she threw a word called small things, the little things. And so this poem is about little things. And so I'm doing in my head a collaboration with Rima Das in my head. And so it's that simple. You don't have to wait for someone to do something. Look around you, look for artists, look for people to collaborate, because that's how it's easier to take it that way. You know, I mean, rather than you sitting and thinking, what am I going to read about? So this poem is called Lesson. This is when I and my wife were posted. She was posted in Tripura. There was literally nothing to do, and that was the joy of life. It's a very small state in northeast India. So ये पोएम का बिगिनिंग ऐसे होता है निदा फाजली के इससे. दुनिया जिसे कहते हैं जादू का खिलौना है, मिल जाए तो मिट्टी है, खो जाए तो सोना है. Nida Fazli. Life in big cities is carcinogenic, inherently xenophobic. Make it big, make it large, be smart, outsmart, outlive, outrun. When I left Delhi for Agartala, I knew I would find nothing. Nothing big, nothing important, only a person who loves me. At times, that is all you want. Nobody. A gush of wind to rattle your window, a young mango tree to be taken care of, a petty rose shrub to be pruned, afternoon tea to be prepared, curtains to be opened, an old wooden table to be painted, a room to be cleaned, books to be shelved, a blanket to be warmed, food to be shared, a poem to be read. At times, that is all life asks for.
So beautiful this was. छोटी छोटी बातें जो हम रोज करते हैं, रोज करना चाहते हैं, उसी के बारे में था, if I'm not wrong. And it's true. I mean, we ignore small things that come to us so easily, and yet we don't look at them. And द जर्नी ऑफ पोएट्री मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि I'm always on the verge of getting into fights with many people when I talk to. That is contemporary writing, the generation who is coming up with so many poetry, so many young minds are writing poetry, they are writing stories. There was a fad during COVID time, it was about micro tales, right? Two-line story. As an observer, as a poet, you have traveled a lot, you have met so many people around. What is your observation when you meet young minds like this and you go through their writings?
Um, so when there are many aspects to this. I mean, when I speak to young minds, first thing is the I think this is like I'm also putting this as a precursor, continuing from the last session, because there was many similarities of ideas and thoughts. I also work at a very slow, isolated pace, and I'm not in a hurry. But as you were mentioning in the morning, a lot of people are in a hurry to get somewhere,
Yes.
do something, and that is not how art almost is like a blooming hibiscus. It'll take its time. You cannot force it. आज खिल जा बे, आज खिल. ऐसे नहीं होगा ना. I mean, it'll take
जहाँ
its
या
yeah.
आई वुड डेफिनेटली एग्री टू दिस पॉइंट. अभी जो हो रहा है, रील्स, इंस्टाग्राम रील्स पोस्ट करनी है, वीडियो रिकॉर्ड करना है, उसको ट्रीटमेंट देना है, उसको पोस्ट करना है, पीपल आर गोइंग क्रेजी बिहाइंड दिस थिंग्स. अब जहाँ तक मुझे फील होता है, इट शुड बी लाइक दे शुड क्राफ्ट देयर राइटिंग, they should read a lot, they should refer a lot, and then like it's like
Yeah,
making a complete dish with proper proportion of ingredients in it. So what would you say on that?
see, I'm definitely not against the, that is the point. I mean, I'm all for collaborations and new things, and but at the same time I'm not against reels. I'm all welcome it. But if you're looking at some an art form seriously, you need to consider something that was mentioned in the last session was also worldview. At times you need to look outside to look inside. I mean, what is happening around the world? How are things happening? I mean, because all art is, for me at least, personal space, recycled. All art is recycled. Somebody has done that somewhere, somehow, in some form, in some indigenous space maybe, or non-indigenous space. But everything has been said and done. So I think that space you want to, like, let me say that. I don't know if I can have a poem for it or not. I mean, but for me, the idea that you need to get into different, oh, I will probably show it to you. I mean, let's say when we are talking of what kind of poems can you do, let me share this poem with you, and in a space that I'm going to show it to you, you can have a look at it later. Like, poem to words hi honge na, that's what you're thinking, but why not, like, you can make the poem perform on stage. And this, I'm inspired by Robert Rauschenberg, who is an artist, who is a contemporary artist. And see, look at this poem. It is just a blank page, okay? A blank page, and I'll tell you what it says. It says just a couple of lines. So the poem is called, I mean, also if you read Lorca, he says a poet or an artist is an anarchist in the best sense of the word. So if you're looking at this page, it's a blank page. It's a dark page. कुछ नहीं है ना, poem नहीं है इस पे. But how it is performing is, इस poem को मैंने एक मुझे लिखना था कि आप डैम मत बनाओ, या इस तरीके से मुझे कुछ कहना था. अगर मैं डायरेक्ट कह सकता हूँ, बट एन आर्ट, दैट्स नॉट अ आर्टिस्ट जॉब टू डू. ही इज़ नॉट अ प्रोपेगेंडिस्ट. ही हैज़ टू डू इट थ्रू एस्थेटिक्स. सो मैंने एक पेपर लिया, सिंपल सा वाइट पेज. I kind of wrote with a pencil on it, and I kind of wrote a poem on the dam. Paper liya, white page, took a pencil, wrote a poem, erased it for a couple of hours carefully, and then put it in a bucket of water. And this is the image. And what the poem says here is, the beautiful habitat of Dibang Valley, home to tigers, mishmi takins, leopards, has been carefully erased and submerged like this poem.
Wow.
So, so you see, that's what you do. I mean, you have all the power, you have the art in your hands. Like, so that I think is a joy that, I mean,
I
looking at
think
things very
मेरे हिसाब
differently.
से poetry is not something it should be very long, using so many complicated, hi-fi grammatical words, phrases or something like that. It could be as beautiful and as small, as short and as impactful as this. So that's what I wanted to know. When you meet people around, there are people who are very experienced in writing, and there are people who are of this era, 21st century. What is your take on this? Is a tricky question I would like to ask here. What is a contemporary word or as a movement for you?
Contemporary word. The word contemporary mean. The word contemporary, what does it mean? I think the word
As a poet, what does it mean to you?
I think as we read the poem Artist, and as I told you, there is something which is called the aura of art. And the aura of art is the cross section of, like, why is there one Van Gogh painting which everybody knows of and not the others? Why is there that one artist? And for every Van Gogh, there is like a zillion artists who have died of hunger. And that is the aura of art. You don't know what is going to happen when. You need to despite that, not for fame, not for anything, because if you don't create it, you will get jitters. It's like an addiction. If you don't do it, you cannot live without it, and that's why you do it. So when I we read the poem Artist in the beginning, and when I wrote that poem, I didn't know it'll go to so many different universities across the globe. I didn't know so many people would share it. So I didn't know it would be quoted in the South African parliament and nothing of that. So I think that one of the reasons is contemporary is you are contemporary, I am contemporary, and everybody has this potential to be contemporary. You are how you define the word contemporary. What I mean to say is,
Is
I mean,
contemporary relative?
yes, I mean, right now you're alive, you're contemporary. And like Dali says, you are art yourself. I mean, you need to practice like that. Like somebody was saying, like, I think Arvind was saying in the morning, I love how you put your poems on your dhoti. I said, this is the space I have. I'm happy with this space. And I can't afford, I'm not a capitalist, I can't afford a hoarding. And this is my hoarding.
Right.
so
Yeah. Very true.
so yeah, how you carry your art around is your thing, and I want to be on the face. Yeah, and those days are gone when a poet you so for me contemporary poet would be someone who is thriving, who is talking about his time, who is documenting his work, things like that. So with that to go, there's a poem that was performed by Department of Theater, University of Iowa in US. Let me read that poem to you. And this was again written during COVID. And the poem says, why does art go hungry? In the story of the ants and the grasshopper, in the story of the ants and the grasshopper, we tell our children to learn from the ants, to fall in line, to follow, to pick a useful trade. We want them not to be like the grasshopper who sings and plays fiddle all summer. We teach them, we teach them gathering wealth is hard work and making music is not. And then we wonder, why does art die of hunger? So, I mean, आप अगर अपनी life को दो चीज़ों में divide कर लोगे, I mean, the way she was talking about templates, both of the early speakers here, I mean, templates इतने, I can divide life in two templates, to be very frank. One is बच्चे हो, आप बच्चे हो तो पैसे ले आओ, पैसे ले आओ, पैसे सॉरी मार्क्स ले आओ बचपन में, कहीं पे भी कॉलेज में हो, ये ग्रेड ले आओ, मार्क्स ले आओ, यही सब चल रहा है. आप बड़े होगे, पैसे ले आओ, पैसे ले आओ, पैसे ले आओ. बीच में शादी कर लो, ठीक है, बच्चे बच्चे कर लो, बट मेन थिंग इज दिस, मतलब हाउ सिंप्लीफाइड इज दिस टेम्पलेट and how badly do you want to break it is the question. I mean, so I think that's where art will come from.
Hello. So, what is that one thing you would like to tell these young people? Can poetry be pursued as a career? Can being author be pursued as a career?
No, don't. It's a very bad decision. And I think children, I was telling the kids earlier that, and there's a honest get back to it. It's like, मत करो ऐसा, बहुत गंदी आदत है. मतलब इससे घटिया नशा नहीं है. तो But then some people in colleges they do ask like, sir आप तो पोएट बन गए हमें मना कर रहे हो. मैंने बोला मेरे मना करने से अगर पोएट नहीं बनोगे तो अच्छा है कि मत ही बनो. मैं कौन होता हूँ यार, like who am I am a random stranger passing through your life, and if by my saying आप मतलब आप गुलजार भी आपको मना कर दे और थू कर दे आपकी पोइट्री पे और कहे ऐसी घटिया वाहियात शायरी मैंने जिंदगी में नहीं देखी, और तब भी आप उसे करके अपना नाम बना लेते हो, ये है पोइट्री फिर.
Very true. I agree on that. That like if you really want to do that, you do it. You do it. You don't think about anything else.
क्योंकि सबसे पहले तो माँ बाप मना करेंगे आपको.
माँ बाप हमेशा मना करते हैं. माँ बाप अगर
हाँ
बच्चा कोई मैगजीन पढ़ रहा है तो क्यों पढ़ रहा है वहां से शुरू होता है.
हाँ
Right? ऐसी
या
मैगजीन नहीं पढ़नी चाहिए. पर उस
या
मैगजीन में क्या है? They don't interact.
या
I think interaction is the most important part of any poet's, any author's life, because through that he comes to a, a filter of what he is going to do next.
या
Because you never know the subject where you will find it from,
हम्म,
है ना. So मेरे हिसाब से एक इंटरैक्टिव सेशन जो होता है किसी भी ऑथर का, it could be verbal, it could be visual, it could be just by listening to things around. So when I used to perform into lot many open mics, and there used to be these young kids of 19, 20, 22 years, and all those kids were having one problem in common. Either they were into isolation, either they abandoned themselves from the society, from the people around, and they were writing because they wanted to take out their frustration somewhere. I think there is some generational shift in the ideologies or the thinking of this new generation, where they get into depression so easily. I mean, why is that happening? I mean, being an author, have you gone through any of such phase, or have you observed such kind of things where kids are writing because they want to pour their aggression somewhere?
wow, that's a pretty deep question because it is getting back to what we started at some place, mental health and things like that. And I feel
Yeah, because
depression is
जैसे
legit.
जैसे
Yeah,
25-26 साल के बच्चे कहते हैं सर वी आर फ्रस्ट्रेटेड, वी आर इनटू डिप्रेशन, समझ नहीं आ रहा व्हाट वी डू, एंड दैट्स व्हाई वी ट्राई टू राइट, एंड वी ट्राई टू एक्सप्रेस आवरसेल्व्स. बट ऑन द कॉन्ट्रेरी आई गो एंड टेल देम कि अगर लिख ही रहे हो तो थोड़ा सा पढ़ के लिख लो, थोड़ा सा देख के लिख लो. वॉट एवर यू आर फीलिंग, find that proper word to express what you want to say, and start writing accordingly. So I guide them in that manner. What would you suggest in this particular thing?
yeah, I think, see, one of the things which I totally, I mean, at least personally detest is poetry. When people start writing, I totally encourage write poetry because bad poetry or bad writing in general, be it screenplay, be it anything, that's where you begin. I mean, it's like before you turn a really good surgeon, you will have to go through some kind of practice. You will have to have apprenticeship. A poet's ki koi apprenticeship to hai nahi. So you will have to go through that trudge of murk and dirt and bad writing. My first book of poems never came out. I'm so happy. So उसके पास तो even गुनीत पोंगा की blurb भी थी. मतलब you understand testimonial, a blurb. Oh, these are very nice poems, and that book never came out because it was shit bad writing. I mean, it was. I mean, I don't know who that person was, but I think those 100 poems or those kind of poems are somewhere you take the first step. I don't even associate myself with my first book, which came out legit. And so I think we evolve, and I see this is how you collaborate. Remember Rima mentioning you don't step in the same river twice, and the quote is by Heraclitus, and that is so true. You evolve constantly. You're reading, and that's where how you're going to grow. I mean, imagine if you're thinking of today you made dal rice, and tomorrow you want to make continental with the same ingredients. It's not possible, right? It is as stupid metaphor as that. You have to get more ingredients, and from where will you get it? From the grocery store of life. You will have to go shop and get it. Yeah, so that's about it.
So,
So
what you are trying to tell, if I put it in a very simple way, कि जिनको ये तकलीफें हैं वो बाहर जाएं और देखें, बाहर जाए
exactly.
और बातें करे, बाहर जाए और ढूंढे कि क्या है वो एक चीज, क्या है वो what I would say, that perfect moment where they can be themselves.
You're right. और बाहर जाने का मतलब यही कि आंखें खोलो ना अपनी. I mean, look open your senses. Okay, let me just very short poem. OTP. Like, can you imagine putting this into this war poem into OTP? So we were speaking of Syria, and a lot of poets were writing on it. Sort of writers were writing on the Syrian war, and this was my comeback on it. Very late, and you understand OTP. Everybody understands OTP in our daily life, and this poem is called OTP. They send me an OTP for everything. They send me an OTP for everything. Every time I log in to my bank or order hypoallergic baby diapers or assorted colors of briefs. चड्डियां तक खरीदता हूं तब OTP मांग लेते हो आप. I don't remember getting an OTP for war. I did not authorize this purchase.
Wow. This was
So
so
it's
true
like
it is.
contemporary. If
Yeah.
you're taking contemporary, कितना contemporary हो सकते हो आप? OTP से ज़्यादा. So exactly, look at things around you, and for this, I think we were talking in the morning about imagination. I mean,
Very true.
you
So
need
I
to,
mean, huh.
yeah.
You really have to be imaginative about things, but not completely imaginative. Imagine that you're going to go into a fairy tale, but yes, what you see around somewhere and at some point of time, you really need to put your creative mind behind it, your thought behind it, of what did you see and how you could have changed that thing. If that imagination is captured in proper words, I guess you could convey your message to any author, any reader in the world, and in any corner of the world, like what artist did.
Yes, definitely. That's what I'm saying. And don't put anybody on pedestal. Don't put me on a pedestal. Look at my work. I think I don't know. There will be somewhere uh, a poem too on that. But yeah. But I mean, don't, because you're constantly critiquing, not criticizing. अरे वो तो इतना घटिया लिखता है वो मतलब not that ways, but look at that work and like look at the body of work around you and then critique it. Then, like, let's say Arundhati Roy, she's like on a pedestal, and when she said the pandemic is a portal and the essay was out there and everybody was talking about it, and I was like, it might be a portal in my head, but it might be a portal to a more inequitable world if not for anything. So this constant idea of questioning things around you, and also, let's say, matla, having fun with imagination, because your syllabus doesn't let you do that. I mean, you can't write stupid answers in your paper and think that you will get through, right? Because so you have to keep your curricula separate. And but then let's say तुम्हें मेरी बातें अच्छी नहीं लग रही और तुम सोच रहे हो कि I mean, wow, look at this beautiful thing, it's like a kurkure packet और हम इसमें कुरकुरे होके पड़े हुए हैं. Matlab, this is like a kurkure packet, and you're imagining things, or you're thinking that right now I'm being taken away by a ray of alien by the sunlight, and you're imagining things. It's so much fun to imagine things, and that's where poetry should come from.
जहाँ तक मुझे लगता है और इमेजिनेशन की बात है, दिस इज वेयर दिस पर्टिकुलर जनरेशन इज लैकिंग स्लाइटली बिकॉज अगर कुछ लिख दिया और किसी ने कुछ कह दिया तो हमें बुरा लग जाता है. When you said about criticizing your critics, take critics from people around you. Today's generation is afraid of being criticized.
Because you're taking your work too seriously. अभी जैसे मतलब I'm sure there are so many artists, वो पीछे music बज गया अब मैं नहीं पढ़ने वाला वो blah blah blah. Who cares? Get off. I mean, because don't take yourself too seriously, not to be vulnerable, and that's the space you want to live in, right? I mean, and something in the earlier session they were mentioning about is very important. I'm not against looking at phones, but phones give you broken images. Can you think, like, you have to constantly scroll to look at one image, and when you look at a panoramic view of this and the phone will give you two different views, and so I think that kind of mars your screen time, definitely mars your imagination to some extent. That is for sure. That is something I'm sure, because I can look at him taking orders and giving this, but on a phone I'll have to scroll up and down, read an article up and down. So I think that difference remains, and it's not being outdated. ऐसा नहीं कि वो बूढ़े ऐसे बात कर रहा तू यार, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. I mean, I understand that point. I understand Kindle पे पढ़ने से environmental friendly भी है, but फिर phone भी तो charge कर रहे हो और lithium batteries आपके लिए mine कर रहे हैं कहीं इथियोपिया में बच्चे नंगे. So please spare me that whole thing of uh, that gyan. Everything what we are. I think this is a world of lesser wrongs. There is no right here. It is all a world of lesser wrongs. So let's agree or disagree on that part. But I think I do agree that if you're letting your senses do the work, I that kind of works better for yeah art.
Yeah, I agree on that. And on that note, I would invite audience if anybody wants to ask any questions.
Yeah, yeah. We decided we would do a dessert session and not like a long lunch session. तो हमारी बातें खत्म हो गई. आपको कुछ पूछना है पूछो. If you're waiting for
Yeah,
this to
please.
end, we'll be happy for this to end.
So my question is, poetry. Since I also like to write, I can only write when I am evoked by a strong imagination or by a strong emotion about something. And if I am in my mundane life, I can't do that, right? So, the, there must be a time when you have to perform some place or you have to write a new poetry because it's required. Are you able to use your imagination whenever you want to? Because right now I'm not able to do that. So are you on the question is like, are you only able to write a poetry only when you're evoked with strong emotions or not?
No, no, no. I don't have the luxury to wait like that, or whoever. Hello, yeah. So I don't have the luxury to wait because I am a practicing poet and I cannot sit around. So what you can do is, like I mean, that's why I'm saying if you free the meaning from the word, you will have a lot of fun. So you like let's say in the past session, there were many words I wrote down. I can easily go back and write a poem on it. Let's say there were small things. There was world cinema. There was freedom. There was solitude. There was self doubt. So yeah, there you go. I mean, so there's enough for write 5 lines. I mean, um, yeah. I mean, you could write a line like self doubt is an artist's life. It's almost like salt in the sea, and still he manages to look at small things, look at world cinema, and find his piece of solitude. There you go, a poem right there. I didn't even write it down. It's right there. You need to like, but that comes from practice of whatever art you're doing, filmmaking, graphic designing. करते रहो आप करोगे तब तो होगा मतलब because this is a I mean and simplification, when youngsters start to write, they would use words like mesmerized and tantalized and and I'm like नहीं 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 इसकी जरूरत नहीं है मतलब beautiful भी चलेगा. What is the crux? अगर मतलब पीछे खाना वही ऊंची दुकान फीका पकवान, अगर पीछे पकवान फीका है तो सामने कुछ भी लगा लो, doesn't matter. I mean, so that kind of thing,
Yeah, so what he's saying is very true. I mean, one thing that evolves your writing is constant practice. Second thing, it's about how much you read and what you read. Taking out, picking words and keeping them in your dictionary, preparing your own customized dictionary, if I'm not wrong, right? That helps you in using those words at correct point when you're framing a poetry. So first thing that comes is keep writing, keep writing. Why? Because you never know what you write will be used where. Even if a phrase come in your mind, like my pen name is Neend, sleep. Neend is my pen name. So if somebody tells me what kind of pen name is this, and how will you explain it? क्यों नींद क्यों है? तो I say in two simple sentences. कोई मेरा पूछे मेरा पता तो बता देना कासिद मैं नींद हूँ सबकी आंखों में रहता हूँ. It's as simple as that. ज्यादा मिले तो भी तकलीफ है,
beautiful,
नहीं मिले तो भी
beautiful.
तकलीफ है. You need to have a balanced sleep to be energetic and as enthusiastic as you can be. So keep writing. Don't think whether it's good, bad, ugly, will it work, will it not work. Just go ahead with it.
Perfect. That's what I agree to. And you don't need always words to write poetry, I think. You can have more fun. That's why I'm saying look at multiple arts and you will find a lot of poetry in them. I remember I don't think anybody else has questions, right? I can even end this with a mic drop. Does anyone else have questions?
Anybody wants to ask anything? Okay.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely. So, how you use the art form is another thing. Like, I remember इतनी talks चल रही थी वो COVID के time पे poetry reading online screen पे पढ़ के bore हो गया था. So there was, I think it was Hyderabad event or a festival. They were like read more poems. And like, तो मैंने क्या किया ना मतलब ऐसे ही तो मैंने this is what I did and most of you know, like you don't get to hear Northeast news. You don't get to hear things. So news from the. So I was like, हाँ ठीक है. तो then they were like, हाँ और एक poem पढ़ो. Then I was like, you're muted. You're muted. I said, no, I'm speaking from the Northeast. That's why you can't hear me. So how you use performance is something up to you, and I think I want to end it with that. Have fun with
Superb,
life,
superb.
not just with words.
Thank you so much, Madhu, for beautiful insights you gave about poetry and how to write and what to write. And I think आप लोग अब जो लिखेंगे, I think it will be very thoughtful, and just keep writing. That's what we would suggest. Yeah, and thank you very much for being here.